So we're kind of seeing multiple different takes on the new format, all run the gauntlet against Mono Black today.
Yeah, Mono Black, I think it's no surprise that it's still probably the most popular deck in the format. We've seen it in the feature match every round now. And it did get cards like Bile Blight and Drown in Sorrow, which aren't flashy, but they do kind of shore up some holes that the deck has. But the deck still runs on the fuel of Pack Rat Underworld Connections, Dossies.
Yeah, that said, we have not seen Mono Black win yet in the feature match
That's
area,
true, yeah.
so we'll see if Ben can maybe take it this time. Both players, once again, trade temples to start, and one thing that Esper has had going for it, and Blue White, is that it's actually gotten to play its own temple now. It has Temple of Enlightenment in the deck. How big of an addition was that actually to the deck?
It's huge because you needed to play cards like Azor's Guildgate just to make your mana good, so it's just a strict upgrade from that card. And particularly in control, being able to scry each turn to make sure that you can make your land drops and get the kind of spells that you want is just huge for control decks. So definitely, I'd say control decks kind of got the biggest benefit here because now they have a blue-white temple.
Well, a turn 2 Pack Rat from Robinson was met with a main phase Last Breath from Andrew Shrout. That opened a window for Ben to resolve Night Veil Spectre. Does look like Andrew continues to have plenty of answers here, but he's going to have to make them main phase as we see a Detention Sphere now taking care of the Spectre.
Yeah, so Ben keeps putting pressure on. If he can follow up with another creature here, even a card like a Desecration Demon could be impressive, but doesn't have any plays here. He's forced to path back.
Yeah, I mean, what he really would have hoped was to use those openings to maybe their Resolve Connections draw a card or something like that. But he does have a Thoughtseize, so he's going to get to see what he's playing against. Andrew, 2 Revelations, 2 Dissolves, and a Last Breath. Actually a pretty weak hand right now because he has no more lands in it.
For now.
For now. It still has 2 Dissolves,
It's still
right?
pretty good, yeah. So Andrew here, I'm surprised
he didn't just dissolve?
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't dissolve here because it's likely you're not going to get I don't know if you want to give Ben the information, and Ben probably doesn't have a good follow-up. I mean,
he didn't have anything last turn.
You know what happened last turn. Thoughtseize is probably the draw that he had for this turn. So I might have just let it countered it there and scried a little bit more.
And you are right on. There's a 4th land there from Ben, but no other plays. It looks like Ben's remaining hand, he just has a Bile Blight and a Hero's Downfall. He's continuing to draw lands. He has 3 more swamps. Makes land 6 and passes back.
So Andrew is going to finally cast one of the Sphinx of Revelation in his
hand
to draw a card. Not ideal for him, but it looks like he still doesn't draw a 5th land here.
Yeah, I do think he's...
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, he finally hit a land there. He did draw an Elspeth for the turn, so if he manages to make his way to 6 lands, he'll have some good stuff waiting for him. And he's actually going to go ahead and shock to play his 5th land, which looks like he's just going to fire off another Revelation.
Yeah, and the fact that he drew a 3rd one the turn before, I think he just wants to just go Revelation, Revelation, Revelation each turn.
Sure. All right, so finally a threat for Ben Robinson. That threat is Desecration Demon. We'll see if it gets dissolved here, and I think it's going to. If Andrew had the 6th land in play, well, Mutavault Sour. I was going to say he could minus and just kill the demon. Mutavault actually stops that play.
So he's going to scry again, try to get that 6th land, so maybe he can start casting Revelations for 3 and then 4. So Andrew's still digging for mana here, but it's still in not bad shape. Ben really just has a lot of dead cards in his hand and really isn't able to pressure Andrew at all. Andrew still has that Last Breath to deal with Ben's 1 Mutavault.
And he's drawing another copy of Last Breath. Andrew's going to go ahead and dig main phase for the land. It's Revelation for 2. That puts him up to 21. And one thing that I'm seeing from Ben here that I actually saw last round as well is it seems like some of the, at least game 1, a lot of the mono black decks are being light on pressure right now, again, in this matchup.
Well, their creature base really hasn't changed. It's always been like this. It just feels much worse because they just there's a lot more control decks now. I mean, I don't think this matchup's really any different than it was before because most of the cards are the same. I mean, out of the black deck, the only real change is the type of removal spells that they have. Whereas the blue-white deck, I think, is generally it might be a little favored against Mono Black Devotion, but particularly after the board, because they have cards like Revoke Existence and even the Brimaz strategy, if they want to go for that, they have a lot more options than Mono Black. Because Mono Black, really, the only additions that Mono Black got out of Born of Gods was removal spells.
Yeah, well, I always felt that game 1 was good for Esper. I actually felt like the game 2 switched it back in Mono Black's favor. We'll see how this plays out, though. Andrew does manage to land that Elspeth, and against what is a threat light board from Ben. It's going to meet a hero's downfall, but still 3 tokens are now on the battlefield.
So Ben looks like he still hasn't drawn a lot of action here, but he does have a Thoughtseize here, which can probably take care of that last revelation.
Yeah, pretty much has to. Andrew's hand a Revelation, a land, and 2 Last Breaths. And now it's kind of a top deck war. Ben does have a Bioblight in his hand for those soldier tokens. Once again, you have to think in a top deck war, the Esper deck's favored.
Yeah, but then again, Andrew did burn through 3 of his revelations, so he's down to maybe a couple of copies of Elspeth left. Jace is obviously good. He also has the Aetherling too, so I'd still give the edge to Andrew, but burning through, he really didn't get a lot of value out of those revelations.
No, he's going to Azorius Charm main phase trying to find some action. He does not. Instead, he finds Mutavault, and now he'll race back. Yeah, he just has a pair of Last Breaths, which Ben knows about, so he's not really going to swing into them with his own Mutavaults.
Yeah, so Ben, it's basically a question of whether or not Ben can draw Underworld Connections before Andrew can draw one of his Planeswalkers.
Yeah, we see a Dissolve, which is an excellent draw from Andrew. Ben does have a Hero's Downfall in hand, so he has an answer to at least that first Jace, or maybe Elspeth. And just in time, Ben drew the Underworld Connections, but he was one-upped by Andrew, who drew the Dissolve just the turn before.
And it looks like Andrew's going to scry the card to the bottom. So he's still digging for some threat here, some card advantage.
Yeah, Andrew does play more Scrylands. He has 9. And
Pack Rat
for Ben. This is actually a pretty decent threat right now.
Yeah, he does have 2 lands that he can discard. And there's a Jace. Problem is, what do you do with Jace here?
Well, it's going to get Hero's Downfall. I think you'd have to minus it. The board state seems a little too tenuous to do much else. The worry for Andrew is that Ben will make a play of end step, make 2 Pack Rats, untap, make Mutavaults, Pack Rats, swing lethal.
Yeah.
He can do that. That whole play is pretty strong.
Oh, it looks like he has a Supreme Verdict as well. I like just casting Supreme Verdict here and then passing.
Just getting rid of Pack Rat. Looks like he's going to bait. If he wants a little more value off that Verdict right now, he's going to go ahead and pass the turn.
You better hope he doesn't draw Thoughtseize.
Well, he's played 2 already, so there's some value there. We see Gray Merchant of Asphodel. It's the current draw for Ben. So he has just 2 Devotion with the 2 Rats at the moment.
So Andrew does have the Last Breath to deal with the Mutavaults, and he has a Supreme Verdict to deal with the Rats if he chooses on his turn, which I'd expect we're probably going to see. But
a swing for 4 from Ben. Andrews passes the. Let's see if Ben's going to make another move. If Ben's going to make another Pack Rat, and now we expect some Last Breaths maybe. And no, it's just going to take 6. This
really
slow-played Supreme Verdict is going to be he's going to be rewarded here.
I'm not sure what the difference is between doing it this turn and last turn, though, other than you basically got 1 card out of Ben.
You got 2 cards out of Ben.
Yeah,
you made the Unstep Rat and another Rat.
But you expose yourself to Thoughtseize, which is terrible for you. So Ben drew another Hero's Downfall. Now he has Gray Merchant here, which can drain Andrew for 2, I believe, dropping him to 9. But the Last Breath.
Last Breath in response to the trigger, so the drain is for 0. That's an interesting play because Ben knew about the Last Breaths.
But again, it's another Last Breath that's not targeting a Mutavault, so I think he's okay with it.
Sure. And now that there's no Downfall mana up, Jace will at least get his cards. He finds another Elspeth, another Tension Sphere, a Supreme Verdict, and there's the Elspeth into Andrew's hand.
So Ben does have an answer for both the Jace and the Elspeth in 2 Heroes Downfalls in his hand.
Yeah, it's still a 2-for-1 for Andrew, and this is kind of where Esper gets really good in the late game.
So Ben can activate both Mutavaults and try to attack Jace first. At least this will tie up some of Andrew's mana to play around Dissolve.
Yeah, I mean, he'd rather not spend the Downfall on the Jace. He'd rather just spend... Well, he can't because there's a Mutavault back, so Andrew could Last Breath 1 Mutavault and block the other one.
So Ben wouldn't be able to get through because he knows about the Last Breath. So looks like he's just going to be...
And he's not going to Downfall the Jace. What do you think? I don't know. That's giving Andrew a lot more cards.
Well, he knows about Elspeth, so I think his fear is that I need to make sure Elspeth gets off the board. That's the card that I'm most afraid of. So maybe he's afraid of Counterspell plus Elspeth. so he wants to have double
Right.
heroes down.
There's a worry that Jace is just going to find another counterspell, or worse, another Elspeth.
But then again, I mean, he kind of has to take a chance here. It's possible it's possible Andrew just upticks Jace and he doesn't want to lose it.
Sure.
So he's not going to lose a card that turn. He can still try to attack it.
All right, Elspeth played it. It's going to -3 to take care of the Desecration Demon.
So great play there by Andrew. He's going to get value out of Elspeth no matter what. He's going to be able to deal with the.
He's going to uptick the Jace. Elspeth is met with a downfall.
And Ben's still not in the worst shape. Oh, wow, that's a great draw here. He drew an Underworld Connection. So
right.
Hero's Downfall goes out to targeting the Jace, and now Underworld Connections should come down and net him a card.
Because of how he tapped, Underworld Connections is going to have to go on a Mutavault. That was
yeah, it's a pretty bad sequencing by
a little bit of a stumble,
Ben there.
I think. Means he'll have less attacking ability there.
But at least he gets the connections to resolve, which is what he needed to do. So now Andrew's sort of backpedaling again, needs to find an answer.
Yep, so no cards in hand. The draw was a Scryland. Ben will scry it to the top, though.
I think it might have been Thoughtseize. So Andrew's going to draw using his Auri's Charm. Draws just an island.
Right, that's going to be no help. So what are the remaining things that Andrew's drawing to in his deck? You did say he's burned through 2 Elspeths and 3 Revelations right now, right?
Yeah.
All right, so what is he drawing to? What's he trying to find?
Aetherling's probably the eighth. He has 1 Elspeth and 1 Aetherling that can really win him the game. Jace can technically win him a game too, but really he's basically digging for Elspeth, Aetherling.
Is it fair to say that Revelation also wins him the game?
It's
close.
Yeah, it's close. But Ben did draw Thoughtseize, so Thoughtseize is a pretty good draw because it takes care of the Supreme Verdict. So now Ben has draws of like Pack Rat, Desecration Demon.
Yep, he leaves a Last Breath on the island in Andrew's hand. Now he will get his second card, and it's going to be a Pack Rat.
Yeah, I'm surprised Ben didn't draw a card first and then Thoughtseize because it gives you a little more information. Like if he drew his card first and drew a Pack Rat, he might not have cast Thoughtseize this turn. He might have led with it next turn.
Now here's the thing: Ben can't. I was going to say he can't play this Pack Rat here because the fact that Connections is on a Mutavault. Andrew can go ahead and Last Breath the Pack Rat. Ben has no cards to discard.
But he can activate.
He can activate. Okay, so he can activate them. That would be if there were another Last Breath. Then he couldn't do it. He can't risk losing that Mutavault.
Yeah. So Revoke Existence. Wow, the one of an
one of in the main takes care of Underworld Connections.
So that's huge because obviously that's something that can get out of control for Andrew. So at least he's one step closer to trying to figure out how to win this game.
Yep, he's gonna bash with Mutavault here. I like that play. It's not really like it's gonna block. But he's going to have to deal with Pack Rat. Currently, he has no answer in his hand. He just has that Last Breath.
So I like activating Mutavault here and then attacking with everything.
Kind
of forcing the issue.
Ben's going to use he has to also keep that card in his hand as it's a resource right now because it's another Pack Rat. So we see just that activate of 2 Mutavaults, swing of Mutavaults and both Mutavaults and a Rat, discard to make another Rat. He sequenced that in such a way that the Rat can't get Last Breath, but a Mutavault can. Ben goes up to 18 off the Last Breath, but it is 5 damage swinging in, and Shrout is down to 6.
So Shrout now, I think, has no cards left in his hand. Really just going to have to top deck an Elspeth here and just a dissolve. So
that will not do it. So Ben Robinson takes down the first game in what I kind of felt was a game that was Andrew's for most of the time. Especially,
I think there were a couple of plays earlier in the game where Andrew really wasn't really expending his resources that great. There are times where your hand is so good, but you're stalled on mana that you really kind of want to pull the trigger a little too early.
He revved for 1 and then for 2.
Yeah, and
those are the plays you're talking about here?
Yeah, and the play that was really, I think, changed it for me was when he chose not to dissolve the Thoughtseize. Because if you dissolve the Thoughtseize there, he drew a Thoughtseize for the turn. And since he made note to play the turn before, he's likely not going to follow up the Thoughtseize with anything. So why not just dissolve the Thoughtseize, don't give him the information, and get your scry. That's the important thing. Because if he does that, he scries 1 closer to the bottom, so he gets that land earlier, so he's able to actually get a little more value out of his Sphinx of Revelations. So I think really that was a critical turn for Andrew.
Now in the end, the Thoughtseize took a dissolve, so it's really just he didn't get
the scry. That was the thing. It's
right.
like not only do you give your opponent information and know that Like he might play into Last Breath a little more depending on how those early games go. So not only do you give him information, but you lose that scry. And when you're stalled on land and you have multiple
Yeah.
revelations already in your hand, the best thing you could do there is scry.
I generally agree. I like dissolving Thoughtseize in the matchup. It's not very often that you get to cast 3 Sphinx's Revelations and not win a game. And I think some of them were just a little low impact. I don't think that he was under so much pressure that he had to fire them all off.
I mean,
think
the way
first one for 1 I actually liked. I thought that one was
But
fine.
he only did that because he didn't scry. Like
Right.
the way those early turns played out, Andrew should have read his opponent for just having a bunch of removal spells in his hand. Like it's fairly obvious. He didn't play anything on turn 4. He then draws a card and Thoughtseize me. You should know exactly what's in your opponent's hand at that point. It should be either Devour Fleshes and Hero's Downfalls, or it's clearly not a threat. So I think if you just scry there and you can get a little closer to getting lands, I think you're in good shape. I also think that there was a turn, a couple of turns after that, where Andrew might not have gotten full value out of his cards. And it kind of, I think he got a little too greedy because when you have all those cards, you have multiple Sphinx Revelations in your hand, you think that, oh, hey, there's no way I can win as long as I make my mana. But that's not necessarily true. I mean, you have to still sequence everything correctly and make sure you get as much value as possible out of all your cards. So I think Andrew got a little sloppy in those early turns maybe, but either way, he's still in decent shape going into the next game because Ben's sideboard is really more geared towards the creature-based decks out there. He's got 3 copies of Dark Betrayal, 3 copies of Drown in Sorrow, 3 Lifebane Zombies. He does have 3 Duress, which is a card that you mentioned people were skimping on early on. And he also has 3 copies of Erebos. So he has 6 cards that he can bring in that are really effective against Esper control. But Andrew does have multiple copies of Revoke Existence after board that he can bring in.
All right, so Andrew also does have the Bramaz plan in his sideboard. He's a little less committed to it than the last deck we saw. That was the Bant deck from Brian Bronduin. But we'll see if he uses that this game also.
Yeah, I still like bringing in I still like boarding out my counter spells and bringing in Bramaz and Revoke Existence, though, because it's just a really obnoxious threat at times for Ben's deck to deal with, particularly because he really can't afford to use a Hero's Downfall on it, given the amount of Planeswalkers Andrew plays.
All right, well, the players are going to trade some lands on the opening turns, and we see a turn 2 Pack Rat once again from Ben Robinson. This time he is on the draw. And turn 3, Shrout will go ahead and Last Breath it while Ben is tapped out. So board remaining clean as both players develop their mana.
And there, it looks like Ben drew one of the Doresses that he boarded in.
Yeah, we'll get to see what Andrew kept. We see Revoke Existence, Verdict, and 2 lands.
Oof, not a great hand.
Not a great hand.
So looks like Last Breath's going to get taken here. That's a Revoke, yeah. So I'd probably take Revoke here and just attack with Mutavault.
Yeah, he doesn't have anything to revoke in his hand as of yet, but I'd say, especially for the mono black deck, Supreme Verdict is easier to play around. He's going to take the Supreme Verdict.
Wow, with the second Mutavault, I'm surprised he takes a Revoke. Knowing how good cards like Erebos and Underworld Connections are, I just want to make sure they don't. Even I don't have one, I still want to make sure they don't die.
I want to comment on the fact that Ben still has a Devour Flesh in his deck. It's almost like he's ready for the Bramaz sideboard plan.
He might also be afraid of the
Archangel,
the Baron.
Blood Baron, absolutely.
Because he did see Black Land, so maybe he thinks Blood Baron could be an option after board.
All right, both players continue to make lands. Andrew has Sense Drawn and Elspeth, so he does now have a game plan. And just more Mutavaults for Ben. So 2 more Mutavaults crash. They put Andrew down to 12. 3rd Mutavault. So still, a Night Veil Spectre in Ben's hand is still being kept in his hand. And now he's going to have to contend with an Elspeth.
Looks like Andrew has an opportunity in his hand, too. So he boarded in the one of the opportunity in his sideboard.
Yeah, I do like that plan. One of the things against a deck that's duressing and Thoughtseizing all your card draws, if you just board in enough of it, they can't take it all.
Exactly. So it looks like Ben does have a Hero's Downfall for the Elspeth.
Yeah, I would think he has to pull the trigger on that right away.
Yeah, you can't afford to get it countered.
Yeah, Elspeth is down, especially when he knows that Andrew's hand is fairly empty right now.
Yeah.
So then Pack Rat's the follow-up play. With 3 Mutavaults, that rat can be online very quickly.
So it looks like a Last Breath is drawn. He still has that opportunity. It looks like he does have a Supreme Verdict, too. I kind of like just passing and casting opportunity here. I don't want to get that Duress or Thoughtseized. And even though you have Supreme Verdict here, I don't think you really need to cast it just yet. You have 3 tokens in play. You have a last breath in your hand and a supreme verdict. So
Yeah.
I like just passing the turn here.
He can also last breath. We'll see. He's gonna go ahead and go for opportunity. He's gonna looks like he's gonna main phase it.
He wants to. He
in case
didn't make a
hits
land. Yeah. He
Yeah.
didn't make a
In
land.
case he hits a land. So 4 cards drawn. Among them is a Bramaz.
Ooh, so a little supreme verdict followed up by a Bramaz. Never hurt no one.
Yeah, and especially those Elspeth tokens are really making that Devour Flesh dead in Ben's hand.
So looks like he drew. Wow, quite the opportunity. He drew a temple, a Bramaz,
A last
a
breath.
last breath, and a Sphinx of Revelation.
That's a huge opportunity for Andrew.
So Ben looks like he does have. Might have drawn an ultimate price or. No,
See,
looks it's a.
Going to be a Thoughtseize, so that will take care. It's got to take care of Sphinx's Revelation, you'd think. There's so many things that he doesn't want here.
I don't know. Might take out the supreme verdict, but maybe he's going to try to win with Pack right here.
So he has to either choose to just try to all in on Pack Rat, or he's got to take the, or he has to take the. I don't know.
It's
hard.
yeah. It's.
There's a lot of things he has to deal with right now, and unfortunately his hand is double Devour Flesh against 3 1/1s.
You might have to take Sphinx Revelation and just try to win with your Mutavaults. Yeah. So it looks like that's what's going to happen. He does have removal spells, so the Devour Flesh will get live if Andrew decides to cast Supreme Verdict, which I think he has to. He can't kind of let Pack Rat go unchecked. Pack Rat will trump the Bramaz. So.
And so we're looking through Robinson's hand. It is a Devour Flesh, a Night Veil Spectre.
I like just passing here. I don't think you want to do anything. You want to follow up. You want to follow up the Supreme Verdict with Night Veil Spectre.
Yeah, well, you basically have a bunch of Pack Rats in your hand. Those Devour Fleshes can't count as cards right now. He's going to actually activate both Mutavaults and swing the team here.
Interesting, yeah. So
remember, he can activate a third Mutavault to pump the Rat if the Rat gets triple blocked. So the Rat is safe. He'll probably lose a Mutavault here at most.
Yeah, I think you definitely block the Mutavault with 2 tokens.
Yeah.
Because you're casting Supreme Verdict. So if you just double block and then block the Pack Rat, and then you can cast Supreme Verdict next turn.
What this does for Shrout, this is actually I like this play by Robinson. So, yeah, he loses a Mutavault, and that's pretty bad. But what it actually has done is it's turned on these Devour Fleshes in his hand really nicely by clearing away the 1/1s.
I don't think it matters, though. I think you want to make sure you keep your Mutavaults in play. I would have preferred to just activate Pack Rat. Because, like, you kind of, just by passing, you kind of force Andrew to cast Supreme Verdict. So that alone would turn off the Devour Flesh. So I think if you just pass the turn there, you keep all your Mutavaults, he casts Supreme Verdict, and then you can attack with 3 Mutavaults next turn. And dropping Andrew to 4.
Well,
and you still have the Gray Merchant in your hand.
Sure. Andrew will take the opportunity after all the tapping to last breath the Pack Rat, and then he'll just, now on a clear board, he'll cast Bramaz.
So, like you said, Devour Flesh will be able to take out Bramaz. So we could see a Devour Flesh attack for 4, dropping you to 4.
Yeah, well, it'll be a wash because the Devour Flesh will give him 4 life. But I agree. I think it's still you still will see it be possibly the play. It looks like he's actually going to take the opportunity to cast Night Veil. Now he knows about the second last breath, so that's a little bit of a this way or that way play. But the Devour Flesh will get Bramaz, and so now that the Elspeth tokens are gone, that's a pretty good play for Ben.
So Ben's in pretty good shape still. Andrew's going to be at 12 life here. Oh, wow.
Good draw. Yep, and Andrew getting another one of his Elspeths.
All right, so he's going to be able to play Elspeth and keep Last Breath mana up for the Night Veil Spectre.
Yeah, so if you're Andrew, the reason I don't think we saw an end step Last Breath on the Night Veil Spectre was that he may have wanted to Verdict the Spectre and then keep the Last Breath back for Mutavaults.
Exactly. Now that is no longer necessary.
Mutavaults are not a concern when you have an Elspeth in play.
Ben drew a land for the turn, so he's got Gray Merchant land in hand.
And you think this guy's going to get Last Breath?
I would imagine. Yeah, I think
so. I don't want him to get cards. All right, Ben up to 30, but his board is now clean, and Elspeth is looming large.
So Ben here, not really any good option. He could choose to play Gray Merchant, but it's really not going to get him anything. Yeah, so Gray Merchant's going to come down, give him a little more life, move up to 32. Andrew will drop down to 10 life, but he's still facing down an active Elspeth here. So Andrew's sitting in pretty good shape right here. Let's see what Andrew draws for the turn. Doesn't really need much else. He did draw another Elspeth. So Elspeth is going to go up 1, get Andrew 3 more tokens, and then we're likely just going to see a turn, pass the turn back.
All right. Yep, 3 more tokens. The Gray Merchant. So Ben's kind of he's on the burn plan here. He's gonna try to find some ways to sneak damage past. Andrew still has no life gain, but he is at 10. And that draw should take care of it. That is Sphinx's Revelation on Andrew's side. Doesn't want it to get Thoughtseize. He's going to go ahead and cast it, and that'll bring us to game 3.
I feel like he only cast it main so that Ben would concede. I feel like it was one of those, yep.
Hey, look what I drew.
So Andrew Shrout evens up the match, moves to game 3 right here, and Ben's going to be on the play. And it was pretty close for Ben there. I mean, Andrew definitely had the top deck there. But Ben's deck, 3 Duress, 3 Erebos. This is unlike any of the black decks that we saw in the feature match earlier where, they were skimping on some of their anti-control cards. 3 copies of Duress, 3 Erebos. Both are really effective against Andrew. Andrew does have 3 copies of Revoke Existence after board. He also has, the Bramaz plan and another opportunity. And he also has a couple of Dark Betrayals. So I still kind of like Andrew in this matchup. Even on the draw, but it'll be interesting to see whether or not Ben gets the turn 1 Duress, turn 2 Thoughtseize, turn 3 Nightveil Spectre draw. That is difficult.
Or like Underworld Connections.
Or Underworld Connections, yeah.
There's still that potential to have these draws that, with enough. I feel like most double Duress hands are very difficult for the control deck to beat, as long as there's a decent follow-up.
Yeah.
They are at the mercy of the top of their deck a lot.
Yeah, and it's funny that we kind of always felt that the black deck is a worse top deck than Casper Control, but that really hasn't played out that way. I mean, it feels like maybe it's just the sheer number of threats in Mono Black Devotion. I guess even though Andrew does have powerful Planeswalkers, even a card like Desecration Demon could be something that Andrew just has to deal with.
Yeah, and I think so. One of the things I've said about Mono Black is one of the few matchups, like when I'm playing Blue-White, that sometimes I will resolve a Revelation for 5 and to lose. It's like the only matchup where that sometimes happens. I think a lot of the other ones, that's pretty much a game-winning play. And that's is a testament due to the Underworld Connections that they have in their deck. It can really pull them through a late game. They can go card for card with your Sphinx's Revelation. A lot of their threats are must-answer threats. They do have an ability to burn you out from some life totals. I think post-board Erebos becomes an issue. The fact that you can't always life gain off your Sphinx's Revelations can be difficult.
That's huge, yeah. I've seen that really be very, very relevant. And the Mutavault. Like, Mutavault's probably the best card in the format.
Yeah, it's in every deck.
It's very, very difficult for these kind of control decks to kind of answer. Because, obviously, Last Breath's an efficient answer, but you're also facing down, Nightveil Spectre, which you have to Last Breath. Plus, your opponents are packing cards like Thoughtseize, Duress, so they can kind of pick their poison as to what they want to take based on what they think their strategy, their best, most effective strategy is going to be to win the game. So, this matchup's I've heard people talk about the matchup is really close. It depends on the Devotion player, how good the Devotion player is, and how well they're set up for the particular matchup.
I mean, if you look at Ben, I would say I'd rather be Ben post-board here, even though I like Blue-White because of how his sideboard's set up. He has 3 Duress and 3 Erebos out of the board. That is a lot of hate for the matchup.
But again, I think it really comes down to how good the Mono Black Devotion player is. Like,
absolutely.
Do they know what cards matter? Do they know what they need? How aggressively they need to mulligan? But I agree with you. His sideboard is definitely better prepared for the control decks that we've been seeing lately than the other Mono Black decks that we've seen in the feature match area.
Oh, we're going to see both players going to 6 here on camera. That's something which, for me at least, I'd rather, I guess, be Mono Black in that situation. Although it's probably a bit of a wash.
Well, the thing is, you can keep these 6-card hands that you think are okay, and then if their opponent Thoughtseizes you, then they're terrible.
Right.
So having access to Thoughtseize and Duress, having to play against those cards is always difficult when you have to mulligan. The one thing that I kind of like the Blue-White decks that play Divination. If you have Divination, I actually like that matchup against Mono Black a lot more than Andrew's particular build. And if you read an article on Star City Games this week by Pat Chapin, he actually posted a bunch of deck lists. And his first article posted a bunch of Blue-White control decks. And one of them was an Esper deck that's very similar to the one that Andrew's playing. And the other one was Blue-White control. And the main difference was one was playing Divination and one wasn't. And I kind of like the Divination version against Mono Black Devotion a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, Divination is an excellent tool against them. You'll find that when they thought seize you, Divination is the card they're normally taking, which is it's a sign that it's pretty good. Just anything that can 2-for-1. When you're playing blue-white control or any Esper control, Bant control against Mono Black, you kind of have to look at your opening hands and assume that the best card is going to be missing from them.
Yeah. And looks like Ben is going down to 5 cards now, so his back is going to be against the wall in this game 3 here. Andrew is comfortable with his opening, his 6-card mulligan. So
is going to be harder. Once again, all it does take is an Underworld Connections for Ben to be fine, but it's that assembling that hand of Disruption plus Connections is going to become harder as he loses for each card he loses.
Yeah, and the fact that Andrew has a lot more answers to Connections game after board than he did game 1 makes it even more difficult.
Yeah, it does look like. So you have a turn 1 Scryland from Robinson. And just a Hallowed Fountain from Shrout. We do see that there is a Connections and Night Veil in the hand that Ben has chosen to keep, so there is some potential here. I don't know if Shrout, he looks like he had Last Breath for a Night Veil Spectre, but he does not necessarily have an answer for Connections right away.
So yeah, even though he can't activate it this turn, Ben's just going to cast it to play around Dissolve.
Yeah, and what I like there, okay, so Ben had the choice between making Night Veil Spectre or Underworld Connections on a tapped end, and he actually went with Connections. If you look at Shrout's hand, Shrout had the Last Breath but had no Syncopate there.
Yeah, and that's just playing the numbers there.
Great.
I mean,
yeah.
it makes more sense. So now he's going to be able to activate Connections, and if he has a 4th land, he can play a Night Veil Spectre as well.
And here's where things get really tough for Esper. The first draw he got off that Connections was a Duress.
I kind of like just dropping a 2nd Connections here.
Yeah, the worry about doing that is Detention Sphere.
Right.
So he's going to go ahead and with Duress here. He sees Opportunity, Last Breath, Jace, Supreme Verdict. He's got to be Jace.
Yeah, I think you got to take Jace here. Opportunity is going to cause him problems down the road, but again, he's got 2 Connections going, or potentially.
He could draw another Thoughtseize before that Opportunity hits.
Yeah.
That's not an unreasonable plan.
Yeah, he's got 7 discard spells in his deck now. So
yeah, and this is where it's so hard for blue-white is to deal with that resolved Connections. He's going to he just takes all the card draw from the blue-white player.
So Ben now, he does have a Desecration Demon in play, and knowing what's in Andrew's hand, he might just kind of drop that out and play here.
Yeah. Another extra card drawn from Ben. There is a 3rd Underworld Connections he drew. Using Connections, he did hit a land. He now can choose between another Connections or a Demon, and you are right, it is going to be the Demon.
So Demon comes down. Andrew does not have a way to stop it from entering play. He does have a Supreme Verdict as an answer for it.
Right. This is something that Robinson knows about, so he's just playing the attrition game. He's now okay 1-for-1-ing.
Yeah.
And Verdict does take care of the Demon.
So let's see. Ben draws a land for his turn. Still doesn't have an answer. Didn't draw a discard spell yet for.
Right. So now for the opportunity. So now he's going to fish for it. He casts a 2nd Connections. Connections number 1 draws a card. It's a Demon. Connections number 2 draws a card.
Wow, it's surprising he cast the 2nd Connections before just activating it first. Because if he activations,
the first one finds a Thoughtseize.
He drew a Demon, so he could have actually just played the Demon that turn instead of a 2nd
Connections.
Underworld Connections.
Seems like he was committed to trying to find that Duress. He did not find it, but he did draw a slew of cards. So now with a 5-card hand and 2 Connections up, he has Demon, he has Night Veil, and he's going to go ahead and go back in for more cards.
Yeah, because you're facing an opportunity here. It would have been so much better if you had a Demon in play, at least attacking Andrew's life total. So now you're drawing a lot of cards, but
he drew Erebos, Life Bane Zombie, and we're going to see Erebos in play. There's no counter on Andrew's side. And thanks to both Underworld Connections, the Erebos is online. It is a 5/7.
So Andrew's going to be able to cast Opportunity here, hoping to draw that Revoke Existence that we talked about.
Yeah, or Detention Sphere. The difficulty is there's a lot of pressure on that Detention Sphere. He'd have to hit both Connections, but that means Erebos would be alive. As it is, Andrew hit none of those cards, and now he is in a world of trouble.
Yeah, that Ben can actually start attacking with Erebos here. Really putting pressure on Andrew's life total. It looks like another Supreme Verdict on top of Andrew's deck. That's going to get scryed to the bottom. No. Andrew has a Last Breath Supreme Verdict in his hand and a bunch of lands. So
no help for Andrew Shrout, and things are going to get grim for him. Erebos swings for 7, and that's first damage in on Andrew. He's down to 15.
Again, you figure he would draw cards first and try to draw the rest Thoughtseize to make sure you don't get a Zorius Charm.
Yep. He's going to draw post-combat. 13. He draws Pack Rat. And now with 7 cards in hand, soon to be 8, he can start. He can afford to commit some extra cards to something like Pack Rat.
It looks like he has amazingly enough, he has no Mutavaults in play.
Well, he's going to Life Bane. He just wants the information. He does see Last Breath, Supreme Verdict, 5 lands. He is fine with that. Make another land, and it looks like we'll go ahead and draw out that Last Breath with Nightveil Spectre.
Well, no, he has a Supreme Verdict, so surprising.
Right, yeah, to play that into the Supreme Verdict is a little that's unexpected.
There's a Jace, so Supreme Verdict's going to get cast here to deal with the Nightveil Spectre and the Life Bane Zombie.
Well, yeah, it looks like Shrout will start on the Jace. Maybe, or we'll see what he starts with. Yeah, he's going to start with Jace. Now, granted, that Jace is going to be fodder for Erebos, but he sees Revelation and 2 other cards, but Andrew's going to have to take, well, I wasn't say he has to take Sphinx's Revelation, but remember that does not gain life right now.
Yeah. So Andrew likely going to drop to 10 next turn, so he's got to be really cognizant of his life total here.
He's going to go, well, he can defend his life total if he has land Supreme Verdict, which he's going to do. Now, Ben will have to choose between 5 to the dome or killing Jace.
Yeah.
Remember, as you said, no Mutavault still.
So there's a Mutavault.
There it is.
Let's see, we're going to get another 2 draws here from Ben. Looks like there's a Duress. So that's huge.
That's huge. Now the Revelation's gone. He will lead off on that, and we see some lands and a Revelation. And
Connection is just doing too much work this game for Ben.
Yes. Last Breath is the only spell remaining in Andrew's hand. Erebos takes out the Jace.
If we see a Pack Rat come down here. Yep. Pack Rat Erebos could make short work of Andrew next turn.
Yeah, this should be in Ben. This should be our first victory for Mono Black on camera.
All it took was 2 Underworld connections. And a lot of land from Andrew. Oh, Andrew did draw an Elspeth here. And I don't believe there's a Hero's Downfall in Ben's hand.
No, he's going to have to find one then. He does have Pack Rat and a lot of mana and a lot of cards, so it's possible that he can just swing past the Elspeth.
Yeah, Elspeth's not nearly as bombastic for Andrew as it's been in other games because of he's been so far behind this whole game, but still gives him a little breathing room here to try to draw into something else.
All right, and we'll see if a Rat's made on end step here.
I'd have to imagine he makes it. I mean, there can't be anything in your hand that you don't mind discarding.
Swamp certainly seems expendable at this point.
I think you're fine with discarding Swamp. Yeah, because you have 4 mana. Maybe he's afraid of a Last Breath here. If he activates Rat, if he activates the Rat and Andrew responds with a Last Breath, he can't actually protect it by activating Mutavault. So he's just
going to activate Erebos.
He's going to activate Erebos instead. So now Andrew can actually Last Breath the Rat.
Yeah, and now that, because Ben's not making a copy, that's actually really, yeah, he's going to go ahead and take that opportunity. Now Ben is out of Pack Rats.
Yeah, I thought the only reason he would not do anything that turn is because he didn't want to lose the Pack Rat, because he knows about the Last Breath. But
Ben is down to 6, I believe, off Erebos activations. He activated it twice on the end there. And he's actually getting pretty low on life points. He may need to put on the brakes here.
He still has Devour Flesh, so he can
devour his Erebos.
Yeah, he can devour his Erebos or his Mutavault if he wants to. So still has a lot of removal spells in here. Andrew does have double Mutavault in play though, along with that Elspeth. So yeah. Ben's life total is not actually, it's pretty precarious.
It is a 10. He did, from that Last Breath did gain the life, so he spent 4 to replace the life he gained. So now he's down to 9. He's drawing more.
So he goes down to 9. He's going to go down to 8 to draw another card. And
pair
2
of lands
there. One of them is a Mutavault though, so he can play a second Mutavault.
Yeah, and I think losing the Pack Rat there was a little bit of a mistake for him.
Yeah, that was the way he was going to power through Elspeth.
Right.
So I think he had to just untap there, knowing that Andrew has.
Or he could have made a Pack Rat end step. That would have been fine too, because then when the Rat dies, he gets another.
So so if he doesn't care, he could just make a Pack Rat. Andrew can Last Breath it, but he'll still get a Pack Rat. And then in his turn, just activate Pack Rats and just smash in.
Yeah, cast Desecration Demon. He still has a full grip of cards, many lands, Devour Fleshes, a Thought Seize, and other Underworld connections. He's going to play Mutavault for the turn.
So it looks like he's going to cast Connections. This is a really, really good turn for. This could be a really good turn for Andrew.
If he finds the Tension Sphere.
Because he could actually activate Elspeth, sacrifice one of the new tokens to tap down the Desecration Demon, and attack for 4, dropping Ben to 4. Looks like Andrew just drew a land.
Yeah, he can get Ben to a. And remember, even if he can't kill Ben, that takes away Ben's ability to draw extra cards, which is almost just as good here.
Yeah, he's got to do. I think Andrew has to be a little aggressive here. He's got to try to. He can't just sit back and try to block each turn. So I kind of like activating Elspeth here.
Yeah, if he had drawn a Detention Sphere, he maybe could have chosen the defensive route.
Oh,
However,
it looks like he has a Supreme Verdict. So he's going to Supreme Verdict instead. And now he's going to attack with both Mutavaults. And yep. So this is great.
So he could have put Andrew to Ben to 2, correct? He could have.
Yeah, he could have brought Ben to 2.
He's going to make 3 tokens. Now, do you prefer this lineup? I kind of. Well, they're both pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I don't know. Dropping him to 2 might have been a little bit better just because it means you can't activate Erebos once and you can only activate one of your connections.
Well, Ben now in a tough spot. He's going to need some help here. Goes to, is it 3? I believe goes to 2 for connections. And he found, and there we go. He found.
Yeah,
I was going to be like.
So if Andrew plays it the other way, I actually think that Ben wouldn't have been able to draw that.
Yeah, he would not have been able to draw the Gray Merchant. I mean, but I think a little bit of Ben got a little ahead of himself here. I think he gave himself an opportunity to lose when he let the Pack Rat die, but it looks like he'll be okay. That Gray Merchant should be a drain for, well, right now for 9. And that's before this Night Veil that he's gonna that he think he's gonna cast. So now that puts it up to 12. And that should be just about lethal.
Yeah, he's basically he has to play around. Syncopate. That's the only card he probably is afraid of. Andrew probably should have left 2 blue up to play around the new counterspell.
Nullify is the card. Yep. To be fair, yeah, Nullify actually does counter Underworld Connections as well.
Yep.
Which is kind of it is an aura. Gray Merchant for 12 will be the play. Suddenly the life totals swap. Ben goes up to 14. Shrout down to 3.
Yeah, so if Shrout actually dropped Ben down to 2,
he couldn't have drawn that card.
The game wouldn't have been over because he still had a couple of Devour Fleshes in his hand.
I mean, actually, if you're in that situation and you're Ben, don't you probably Devour Flesh yourself and then draw more cards.
Yeah, but it would have required a lot more mana, and he basically would end up losing his Erebos or possibly one of his Mutavaults. So either way, though, I think Andrew's best bet that turn, because the Desecration Demon really wasn't. You had Elspeth in play. So it's really not that big a deal.
It's just there to gain life with your own Devour Flesh at that point.
Yeah, I think you want to kind of shut off multiple Underworld Connections activations.
It kind of shows the power of Underworld Connections. There's a lot of ways to, they really are just carrying him through. They're just powering him through this game, I would say.
Yeah.
He's up so many cards on his opponent.
So Ben looks like he drew a Hero's Downfall, so he has an answer for the Elspeth now.
Yeah, I don't believe he's left in Bioblights, so he will not be able to just sweep away the tokens, but I don't doubt he needs to. He currently has 2 damage in the air, and he's just going to have to survive for a turn, which doesn't look particularly difficult. Looks like he's going to try to draw to another Gray Merchant to just end things on the spot.
He's got the world of options.
Yeah, so he draws. He's going to take a Scryland. It's another free look for a Gray Merchant. Did not find it. He has 2 more draws to get one.
Ben's sequencing in this match has been very interesting, to say the least. And it looks like he drew a Lightbane Zombie. So,
yeah, to be fair, you don't need the Gray Merchant to win on this board. I think looking for one is fine because, wins are wins, but he should be fine no matter what happens here.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you still got to be a little careful because granted, your opponent's at 3 and you're at 11, but he does have 6 creatures in play along with 2 Mutavaults. Like, you don't know what other crazy stuff your opponent might be playing in my top deck. So I think you still want to sequence everything correctly and make the right plays. I think maybe he's just getting a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, he's got Shroud down to 2 on the swing. He does, as long as he holds back some Devour Fleshes, he can buy himself some SOS life points if he needs them. He has Shroud at 1, off the swing, hits a Revoke Existence. He's going to have to discard. he's going to continue casting, it looks like.
Short of a biomastery, what's it, a biomass mutation? Short of a biomass mutation from Shrout, I think Ben should be able to win this.
And he cast Life Bane there. I don't think it probably was safer to hold up the Devour Fleshes. And a land will be no help. So Robinson does look like he'll be able to get this game and match. So Robinson, 2-1 defeats Andrew Shrout.
So you kind of said you liked Ben's sideboard for this match. You thought that he had a lot of really good cards. We've seen 2 other mono black decks in the feature match area. Both of them kind of skimped on their anti-control cards. Ben, I think he made the right decision because, walking around the tables today, we're seeing a lot of blue-white based decks.
Right.
So you definitely don't want to skimp on your duresses and your articles.
Yeah, I do think this is a close matchup. I think sometimes a lot of the games can be very draw dependent. As we saw there, there are a lot of games that are like one-sided and draw dependent. Ben had a Thoughtseize into Underworld Connections, and at that point, there wasn't a lot of pressure on him to be playing optimally at that point. He was just had enough cards.
It's tough to really get a good gauge on how this matchup plays out because game 1, I thought Andrew made some decisions that cost him the game, and in game 3, Ben mulliganed to 5, and he looked in total control of the game.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I think it can go really either way. It kind of depends on the mono black player's build, the blue white player's build, and